Hello, good morning, good afternoon, good evening, wherever you might be. My name is Sean and I'm delighted you're joining us for today's ESPC community webinar. This webinar is part of Microsoft Fabric Week, proudly sponsored by Actuaries. Today I am joined by Nikki van Voonhoven, MVP, who will present a day in the life of an accidental Fabric administrator. We love hearing guys how to say, so remember to join in conversation about today's webinar. Our handle is @ESPC_community and our hashtag is #ESPC25. Tweet us, tag us, and tell us what you learned. Don't forget to check out our Learning Hub, which is updated with the latest blogs, ebooks, webinars, and how-to videos. You can access and view the Learning Hub by visiting our website, sharepointeurope.com, and clicking the Content tab at the top. Don't let the learning stop here. Continue to keep up and stay ahead by joining us for our next webinar, Getting Started with Data Governance in Microsoft Fabric, with Joseph Dinatoni, MVP. This webinar will take place Tuesday, May 27th at 3 p.m. CEST. For more information on this webinar, please check out www.sharepointeurope.com/register for webinars. Looking to expand your Microsoft Fabric skills? Join us in Vienna from the 15th to 18th September for the European Microsoft Fabric Community Conference. Experience three keynotes, 10 full-day tutorials, and over 130 plus expert-led sessions covering data engineering, real-time analytics, business intelligence, and data governance and more. Sessions are delivered by Microsoft experts, community leaders, and Microsoft corporate speakers. Enjoy hands-on workshops, valuable networking, and memorable social events. Scan the QR code to get your ticket and use code FABRICWEEK150 for €150 off your current deal. FabCon Europe tutorials are here. We're excited to launch a series of hands-on tutorials focused on the latest innovations and practical applications of Microsoft Fabric. Topics include Microsoft Purview, Power BI, data warehousing, Fabric data agents, SQL database, and more. Learn directly from experts and gain real-world skills that you can apply immediately. Use code FABRICWEEK150 to get €150 off the current deal. Limited time offer. As always, if you have any questions at any stage, feel free to type in the questions box, and Nikki will get to them during the webinar. This webinar will be recorded and added to Resource Center, where you'll be notified by email when it's available. And now I'm going to pass you over to today's webinar. Nikki, hello, Nikki. Thanks for joining us today.
Hi, thank you. Great to be here. Let's share my screen.
Yeah, I can see your screen.
Cool. Thank you, and welcome everyone to a day in the life of an accidental Fabric administrator. And I hope you enjoyed the Fabric Week so far. There's been some great sessions, and there will be some more even in the rest of the week. So actually I want to start today with telling you a little story. So once upon a time, about 8 years ago, I started at a new job at Van Lanschot Kempen, a wealth manager in the Netherlands. And I started as a data warehouse developer, and I also had in the data management team the most experience as a Power BI developer. So I also gradually grew into the Power BI development and administration job at that time. They actually started with one department with Power BI and gradually grew over time at around 600, 700 Pro licenses. So they made the switch to premium. There was some premium capacity management in that, also training of users. And after that role at the wealth manager, also had some other consultancy roles in the same position. So in the capacity and tenant administration corner, also doing some POCs, for example, and health checks to check for best practices and stuff. And yeah, the things I learned over time, that's what I want to share with you today. Some tips and tricks, and also what you can do to get started if you are that accidental Fabric administrator, for example. So what I want you to take away for today is at least to get a grip of all the features and configurations that are available from an admin perspective. What is there? What should you do? For example, if you just gain control of a Fabric tenant at this moment. Some best practices along the way. Also some community tools that I will show. some recent ones that were developed actually that can help you tremendously. So you don't have to reinvent the wheel yourself. There are some good things out there also, and it should leave you with enough experience that you can apply it immediately when you return to your desk, either this afternoon or this week when you have time. So let's have a look at a few of the typical tasks of an admin. Some might be familiar, some might be less familiar or even not at all. Of course, we have the admin portal, the Fabric admin portal, and also the tenant settings where you can adjust some things to your needs. Depending if you have a premium capacity, you will have to monitor that also. Maybe you have some sort of integrations with other tools like the Power Platform, or more on the side of the 365 app suite. And it's also good to check the adoption of reports, maybe also the training of users and that sort of things. And depending on the size of your company and the BI department, or you might have a center of excellence, for example, or community of practice, or whatever the name. So these might be a few of the tasks. Then if we go over on the tool side, there might be a few of these that are familiar. So there's a lot of tools inside Fabric, like the admin portal and admin monitoring. More on the development side, you have the REST APIs. On the Power BI and Fabric side, we will cover those also in a little bit. If you're more into performance or troubleshooting, you might be familiar with the external tools also, so Deck Studio or Table Editor, for example. And if you, for example, use Power Apps or Power Automate, you might be familiar with the Power Platform Admin Center or some other automations that you use. And I will also come to that. What are some tweaks or things you have to take into account when using integrations with other tools? So I am Nicky van Voenhoven. I'm the unit lead Fabric and Power BI at PowerDops, a small consultancy company in the Netherlands, located in the south of the Netherlands, in Den Bosch. If you want to look me up online, it's usually Nicky VV on any of the socials on my blog. And I'm also a data platform MVP now for 5 years already. So let's get started. Let's start with actually what the Fabric admin role is, and to set the stage, what it can and what it can't do, and also look at some particular things that other roles that also have the same access, for example, what you wouldn't expect maybe. So looking at the complete view of Fabric, we're actually going to zoom into the bottom left part. So on the analytics platform, to security and governance. And for that, if you look at all the tools and features available in Fabric, it's actually a lot, and I think you could cover multiple sessions on every pillar here. But today I want to focus on the blue ones mentioned here. So mainly managing the data estate, but also some parts of security and discovery of data, and of course monitoring and automation. That's also an important part that I want to touch upon. But first, let's see what is a Fabric admin. I think the Fabric admin should be part of a center of excellence, of course, depending on the size of your company. Together with other people, you should be in that center of excellence and decide on the direction of the Fabric environment. There's all kinds of settings that you might want to enable or even disable. For example, publish to web. You might not want to use that. It's all in the notice of supporting the users, but still being in control and compliant with the policies in the company. So giving users things to do and explore the data that they have in the company, but also adhering to the governance or maybe regulatory rules that are that should be in place. And yeah, it's a fine line. You can give them more control and do governance afterwards, or keep it tighter and give them control on a use-by-use basis, for example, depending on in what environment you're in, of course. So what actually changed when we went from Power BI to Fabric administration? Well, now the whole of Fabric is, of course, a software as a service data platform, as Power BI already was. And Power BI is now one part of that Fabric data platform. But if you look at Power BI itself, it's actually still the same as it was before. It still has a tenant. You can have one or multiple capacities, which consists of one or multiple workspaces, maybe with apps on top. But that's the concept of Power BI are still the same. And we now, of course, have the new feature domains that are also available in Fabric. But the layering of those artifacts is still the same in Power BI. And if you look at the new Fabric items, for example, domains or any of the other Fabric workloads or items, they would always require a capacity. So when starting with an F2, certain things might need a higher capacity. Now Copilot is of course also available from an F2, but some things might still require a specific capacity. For example, sharing with other users without a pro license is still available from F64 and above. So what are the different roles and administrators inside Fabric? If we look at the Fabric administrator, he's almost on top, and we will see why in a minute. And underneath, we can have a multitude of other administrators, so gateway, capacity, domain, and workspace, for example. And they might be all the same person, they might be different people or groups of people, depending on the size and the distribution of your organization. So why did I write the Power Platform Administrator on top of the Fabric Administrator? Let me show you. If you go to the Azure portal and check Microsoft Entra ID, so the Active Directory, the former name, and check the roles and administrators. If you check the Fabric Administrator, you will see that it can manage all aspects of Microsoft Fabric. And if you look a little bit closer, well, the Power Platform Administrator actually doesn't show anything of Power BI or of Fabric. But if you look a little bit closer into the rights that the Fabric Administrator has, and you look at the bottom one, it says it can manage all aspects of Power BI, right? But if you look at the URL or the role permissions that you see, you actually see that it has Power Apps.Power BI. It's, because Power BI was formerly part of the Power Platform, or maybe still, not sure, but at least Power Apps Power BI was a part of the Power Platform, and also it contained the breadcrumb of Power Apps. So this means that if you are a Power Platform administrator, you also have the same rights as a Fabric administrator. You can do more, but you also can do everything inside Fabric and Power BI. So just be aware that not only Fabric administrators can do all the administration tasks, but also Power Platform administrators, and of course the the global admin can also do that, but that's quite obvious. But yeah, not a lot of people know that also the Power Platform administrator has the same rights. Just something to be aware of. And as an admin, you can also go to the 365 admin center and, for example, check your Power BI Pro licenses and the number you have available. Usually you can't request new Power BI Pro licenses depending on if you have that. That's, I believe, the billing assignment, but you will have to go to either your global admin or the billing admin to request new licenses, but you can at least check for the availability of licenses. So going on to the first tool and tasks you would want to manage as an admin. So let's start with the admin portal. Access to this admin portal is only granted to those 3 roles. So the Fabric admin, the Power Platform admin, yes, the same rights, and also the global admin. And this access cannot be delegated. So you have to have either of these 3 roles to be able to at least access all the features in the admin portal. You can always go to the admin portal, and I believe you will see the capacity settings, for example. If you started the trial, a Fabric trial, for example, then you can see that capacity and also manage it. And I believe there's 1 or 2 more that might be available. But if you want to check all those pages and tenant sets, for example, you have to be in one of these 3 roles. If we then look a little bit closer to the tenant settings, access to the tenant settings is the same as the admin portal, so it can't be delegated. But if we look at the tenant settings itself, they obviously control tenant level operations, so for the whole tenant, but there are ways for granular settings, for example. You can create groups and give a specific security group, in this case, access to create Fabric items, or deny a specific group. So if you want to run a proof of concept and only give a certain set amount of people access to Fabric, you can do that with a security group and do that here. There's also a small check mark at the bottom, so capacity admins can enable or disable the setting. So this is part of the delegation to either capacity admins or domain admins. Some settings can also be delegated to domain admins.
Nikki, there's just a question in there, if that's okay.
Yeah, go ahead.
How to enable Fabric mirroring from tenant settings?
That's a good one. I will come back to that in a minute.
Perfect.
Yeah, thanks. I will have a demo of the tenant setting, so I will go into that. Not sure if there's a tenant setting, but I will check that in a minute. So the delegation of those settings. For some settings, you can't disable it. So in this case, it's also a check mark that's enabled by default, and you can't disable it. So any capacity admin can still decide for his own capacity that he's an admin of, if he wants to enable the setting or not. So independent of the tenant setting, you can still change it on the capacity level if you are the capacity admin. Just be aware of that. Things might be different on the capacity level than on the tenant. And as I mentioned, for some settings you can also delegate it to a domain admin. Not all, but some settings have this ability. Now let's go to my demo environment. So into the tenant settings, there's a few things they did recently to update this. So there's a new or updated tenant settings box at the top that you can check what settings have recently changed. For example, these 2 are pretty new. The service principles. If you click on it, you will go to the setting immediately, so that's good. And what they did is actually they divided this service principles into 2 tenant settings now. So you might be worth checking it out if it's still in the setting that you wanted to, or you might want to change anything here. And also those have the new tag, so you can pretty good see what has changed or what are the new settings. And a nice addition is also the filter box here. So previously I also used Ctrl F on my browser window and then just search for example Excel, and that would give me some highlights, right? So Excel, and it has 3 hits. So it found 3 hits for Excel. But if you go to the new filter box and type in Excel, I actually see that I have 5 hits now, because it also searched the description of the tenant settings and came back with 5 settings, and it also filters the list now. So you can more easily find things, but also see where it came from. So you are in the export and sharing settings, and you only have these 3 settings available that are related to Excel. For example, if you do want to check anything with B2B or guest users, you can search for that, and you get everything, all the settings that are related to guest users. Now, back to the question. Let's check for mirroring. So this is only the database catalog. So I don't think there's a setting specifically for mirroring. And in that case, you would just have to enable the users can create fabric items. And that will give you the ability to do just that. Depending on if you want to use other functions or features of Fabric, so SQL database, for example, you will have to enable that. In particular, also variable libraries. But if you only want to use mirroring, then you just have to enable this switch. And you can do it for a specific security group or the entire organization, depending on what you need.
Perfect. There's a few questions in now. Will I ask a few, or is that okay?
Yeah.
As a Fabric admin, can I scale Fabric capacity CU from F64 to F128? Example.
Can you repeat the first part of the question?
Yeah. As a Fabric admin, can I scale Fabric capacity CU from F64 to F128? Example. I want to manage capacity unit. On the other hand, how can we manage auto scaling function?
Yeah. So the first one, to manage the, you can go to the capacity here. But to actually manage the capacity itself, so a Fabric capacity, you will have to go to the admin portal or the Azure portal, sorry. And you can manage your capacities there. So previously, premium capacities were managed in Power BI, but Fabric capacities are actually managed in Azure, created there, and also I actually don't have a Fabric capacity here. Let's check this one. So you'll have to manage it in Azure. So it also says here, this is an F4 capacity. I can adjust some settings here or add admins, but if I want to change the capacity units or the SKU, for example, I have to go to the Azure portal and do it there. So Microsoft Fabric. And here I can adjust the capacity and set the SKU, for example, pause it or activate it, whatever you want. And was there one more question, or?
Yeah, we can go to another one. What's the best way to implement stop start on the Fabric capacity?
So what does that implement?
What's the best way to implement stop/start start on the fabric capacity?
I'm actually not sure. I'm not sure if I get the question entirely right. So
Yeah, that's no problem.
yeah. Any more questions, or otherwise I'll.
Yeah, there's loads of questions in. If you want to keep going through the
let's
questions.
Let's do one more and then continue. Yeah.
Hello, Nikki. May I ask you, if we have more customers on one fabric tenant, we need to monitor every customer per capacity. All of our customers want to monitor their capacity usage for themselves as well. How do I set up the capacity metrics app as a best practice?
So I'm thinking you have multiple customers for one capacity, right? If that's the case, then you we have the capacity metrics app. You could implement some row level security, for example, if you know which customer is using what workspaces. In that case, that might be possible. Otherwise, if one customer is having access to one capacity, that would be easier, because then you can actually give them access to one capacity, I believe.
And he just added, no, each customer has their own capacity. Just added there.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah. So one customer per capacity, that's you could give them viewer rights, for example, to the report, or not sure if that's possible in this way. You can also set up the app, right, and maybe create an audience with a filter in there on the capacity itself, because by default, if you set up the capacity metrics app, you get all the capacities indeed of the tenant. So that's why I see my trial, but also the F4 that I showed earlier. But I believe if you create an app on top and create an audience, yeah, with the filter only for that specific capacity for the customer, that would work. And otherwise, yeah, maybe connecting to the model and then adding a row level security table that you manage yourself. That would also be a possibility. And then you have to distribute that to the customers, I believe. That should, but yeah, if it's just one capacity per customer, then the easiest way would be just creating this this workspace, so installing the app on the capacity, and then giving the customer access to this workspace.
Perfect. Patricia just added to the stop-start question. The other question, I think it's important. How is the best way to implement a stop-start on an environment? Imagine I want to have Fabric only running during the day.
Right. So there are some ways to manage your capacity. There are actually, let me check the Fabric REST APIs. And there are also the Fabric Capacity REST APIs in Azure. So those are actually Azure REST APIs with which you can resume, suspend your capacities. So let's look at this, for example. So this is an API call that you can do from any tool that you can call an API. It can also be with PowerShell, for example, and you can suspend the capacity here at a specific time point, and then resume it in the morning, for example. You have to have some your subscription, the resource name, and where your capacity is located. But with that, you should be able to do that.
Perfect. Thank you, Nikki.
Yeah.
So, yeah, I'd say we'll keep going on. Give you all day with questions. Yeah.
I will be able to check the questions later on. I think in the chat. Yeah.
Thank you, Nikki.
So back to those tenant settings. There's a lot of settings, right? I think they started with 35 or 40 maybe settings in back in the day when we started with Power BI. Right now it's 135, I think, maybe even more at this day. I think it's important to document your tenant settings. So why you put a setting on or off, and also communicate it to the users. Now there's a few ways to handle that. You can do it manually, of course, and keep all the changes with that. There's even a nice way of doing it with Power Automate Desktop that Kurt once showed. But as of I think 5-6 months ago, maybe a bit longer, there's an API, the list tenant settings, and with that you can just get all the tenant settings, for example, with a notebook, get the tenant settings, export them, and check the current value of the setting. If you do that on a weekly basis, for example, you can also see the changes over time, and also see the new tenant settings coming in. So the two new settings that we saw earlier here, that was actually here. So those two new settings, you can actually see those if you have a weekly report that you show, and you can actually check for changes and the default settings also on that new tenant settings. So next to the list tenant settings, there's also an overrides API. So those are handling the delegation settings in the tenant settings that I mentioned earlier. So you can delegate settings to either capacity or domain admins, and with this API you can get the settings that have been overridden on that level. So it gives you some visibility into the governance and the changed settings on that level, either capacity or domain. So next to documenting and communicating, you can also set up some change notification if you want. I previously did it with Defender for Cloud Apps, but as we will see a little bit later, there's also some other possibilities now with some monitoring solutions that you can use and maybe set up alerts on there. But if you do it with Defender for Cloud Apps, you can set up email alerts when any of the settings change. So in this case, my admin user actually changed the setting certified datasets, and it switched to the state false. So it was previously true, now false, and you will get a timestamp and the user that did it. So you can at least check in with that user for why did you make the change, or he didn't agree to change it, or you at least get an audit trail of who changed what and when. And one final remark is at least go through the tenant settings and check all the defaults, because some of the settings are on by default. For example, publish to web. I will turn that off if I were you, but some are also off, and you might need them, for example, to set up a custom monitoring solution that I will show you later. So some settings might be already the way you want them, but some might not. Maybe you also have a company policy that you can't export anything, or you might want to use sensitivity labels, for example. Just check those policies and check if the settings align with those policies. And preferably you would do it with a group of people, like the Center of Excellence or the Business Intelligence Competence Center, whatever you want to call it. And just don't decide on all the settings on your own if you are the only admin. Just make sure that you incorporate the departments that use Fabric and also the governance team maybe. For example, if you look at the export and sharing settings, and this was actually these are the screenshots from 2 months ago. I believe there's also a few new settings already, but this is the list of the export and sharing settings. So it's a lot. So make sure to go through that and enable or disable the settings that you want for your company. Next topic that I would want to touch upon briefly is collaboration and sharing. Also already mentioned the use of workspaces and apps. If you want, you can use domains. If you have a Fabric capacity now, it might help to separate some content into domains, and also maybe delegate some of those settings and permissions on a lower level to the finance domain, for example. Give them rights to manage their own domain, so you as a Fabric admin don't have to do everything. On a workspace level, there's one important part that I want to mention. You have pro or premium workspaces, but also one specific workspace, the personal one, that's called My Workspace. And I think it's called that for a reason. It's My Workspace, so you should only use it for your own stuff. Don't share things out of your personal workspace. There's a reason for that, because it's hard to get into that workspace. And for example, if a person left the company, or it's on sick leave, for example, for a while, then it's hard to get into the workspace and get that stuff out. So I'd rather create a shared workspace like Nikki's workspace and use that to publish my things to and share it from. There has been a nice governance addition, I believe, around 2 years ago. Some My Workspace improvements where the Fabric administrator can now add themselves as an admin of a personal workspace. And the good thing is also, it's also tracked in the audit log. So if an admin does that, then you can check for that in the audit log, and the specific activity that you want to monitor for is add admin personal workspace access. And actually did this in the PowerOps tenant a few days ago. So if you look at the REST API, so I went to the admin get activity events admin API. So that's part of the admin part of the REST API. So the Power BI API still. And the admin part here means that you have to either have Fabric administrator rights or use a service principal that has the same rights. So also that tenant read all or write all, for example. And the nice part about the REST APIs here is that you can also use the try it button. So you don't have to set up a whole PowerShell or notebook. You can, but you don't have to. If you just want to execute the REST API and on an ad hoc basis, you can just enter the parameters. You do have to fill them in manually, but if you do that and click on run, then you will get the output for this REST API. And if you check over here, this is the activity where I used my own account as a Fabric administrator to add myself to the personal workspace of my boss, so Leon Huismans. By default, this access is revoked after 24 hours. So if I would check back again now, so this is about 4 days ago, right? So my access has already been revoked. If I want to get access again, I have to go to the admin portal and give myself admin access again, and that again will be logged in the audit log. So you can at least track for this in the audit log and monitor for it. So that's on the collaboration and sharing part. Let's go to the Power Platform and integrations section. So why did I add Power Platform? I've used quite some integrations. So for example, Power Apps or Power Automate flows in combination with Power BI. For example, to create a write-back solution with Power Apps in Power BI, or maybe to monitor for data flow refresh whenever they complete, you can do a Power BI refresh, for example, to chain that into a Power Automate flow. And if you set up such a solution, you have to take into account the data loss prevention policies that are created and managed inside the Power Platform Admin Center. So let's have a look. The Power Platform Admin Center is managed by the Power Platform Administrator, of course, but as a Fabric admin, you do have read access to it. So you can still access it and check and view the data loss prevention policies. For example, you can also manage the installation of personal gateway, for example. If you want to disable that, you can also do that here. And this specific setting is now also available in the Power BI gateway page. So if you go here to the settings and then go to manage connections and gateways, there's a lot of stuff that is now also available here. That was previously only available in the Power Platform Admin Center. But if you switch this tenant administration to on, I believe you also have to be a tenant admin to see this switch. You can actually, for example, manage cloud connection sharing and check for any connections, or check, for example, which gateways are installed, and also manage those installs. So if you want to restrict users from installing gateways, for example, you can do that here by turning this setting on, for example. So if you only want to use the on-premises data gateway, not the personal one, this is the place where you enable this setting. So back to the Power Platform Admin Center. So this is what I just showed you. Now also available in Fabric or Power BI. So the important part of the Power Platform Admin Center are the data loss prevention policies. And those actually come into play when you use different connectors in the Power Platform integrations. So for example, let's say I'm creating a write-back solution where I have a Power BI report with a Power App embedded, and I'm writing comments on the report, writing them back to a SQL database, and then getting the comments back into my Power BI dataset, for example, or semantic model. So in this case, I will use actually 3 different connectors. So the Power BI connector, the Power Apps connector, and also the SQL database or SQL Server connector. And the last one is actually a premium connector, so you will have to get a Power Apps license for that. But also, those 3 connectors will have to be in the same buckets as you see here. So there's actually 3 buckets in a policy: business, non-business, and blocked. And all those 3 connectors of a particular solution have to be in the same bucket. And usually Power Apps and Power BI are in the business bucket. So the SQL Server connection, if I want to write back to a database, also needs to be in the business bucket. Otherwise, you won't be able to enable the Power Apps or use the Power Apps that you created to write back the comments to the database. If, for example, say you want to create a flow and from a Power BI dataset, for example, send a message to LinkedIn or X or whatever social platform that you have, you might find out that probably the social media connectors are in the non-business bucket, and Power BI or wherever you want to send the social media message from is in the business bucket. So that's one of the reasons you can't use those flows together unless you put the social media connectors also in the business bucket, which you maybe you don't want to do. So if there's an issue with data loss prevention policies, long story short, get in contact with your Power Platform admin and discuss what you want to change, what you want to use it for, or find another solution if this is not possible. Then the final part will be monitoring and automation. I will first go over a few of the out-of-the-box monitoring options in Fabric. I will go over 3 of these, so the capacity metrics, the monitoring hub, and admin monitoring workspace. There's a few more, but I will mention those later. And after that, I will also go to the a few manual, so not out-of-the-box solutions that are out there. So let's look at the capacity metrics app first. So this is actually, the name says it, it's to manage your Fabric capacity. It shows all kinds of metrics, so the capacity usage over time. If you look over here, for example, and look at the top right graph, you see the utilization, and the blue bars are actually background, and the red bars are interactive workloads. So this means interactive is usually Power BI reports or DAX queries, for example, that are executed, and the blue ones are all the rest. So on the Power BI side, it's the semantic model refreshes, and on the Fabric side, it's almost everything. So for example, Lakehouse access or Copilot is also background. And yeah, whenever you reach the limit of that 100% on your metrics app, things might first get to throttling. Other things might slow down depending on where you are on that 100% limit. You might even have to wait a few hours or days before the capacity gets back to under the limit, and you are able to use it. There are some ways around it. If you have a pay-as-you-go capacity, for example, you could pause it. Then all the usage is gone, but you still have to pay for all the overage usage. So yeah, there's some tweaks around that. But all in all, this capacity metrics app is a good start to get monitoring your capacity. And you can actually find a lot more detail. So if you look on one of the red bars that is over the 100%, you can drill down into the all the operations that were part of that peak. So on the top, you see the interactive operations, and those are all queries in this case. So queries on semantic model, and in the middle, here we see the background operations. So these are all semantic model refreshes, so scheduled or on demand. You actually see the percentage they contribute to the capacity. So the background is actually 64%, and the interactive part is 46%. So there's quite some heavy queries that were contributing to the capacity, but also some success and failed refreshes that were into play. So from this point, you can check what workspace, what semantic model it was, also check the user, and get in contact with them to optimize the model or cut down the number of refreshes, for example. And in this way, monitor the capacity and improve it a little bit. So the second tool is the monitoring inside of Fabric. So this is actually a new pane in Fabric that you can access as a user, so a regular user also. It actually shows all the items and activities that are being refreshed that you have access to. So you have to have direct access to the item. So as an admin, I can't see all the items. I just see all the items that I have direct access to. Just minor notice. You can do some filtering. So for example, on the time or item types, or only field items. So it's a nice way to, in the morning, for example, check if everything ran fine or you need to take action on anything. And the last one I want to show you is the admin monitoring workspace. It's actually an out-of-the-box workspace that is provided by Microsoft. It's only initially it's only available for Fabric administrators, so it will show up as a new workspace on the top of the list. So if you check your workspaces list, this is actually the admin monitoring workspace. And yeah, the pointer to that workspace will only be available for Fabric admins. You can, after it's loaded, manage the access and give other people also viewer rights to the workspace. So they can, in the end, access the workspace, but initially it's only for Fabric administrators. And as you saw, I haven't opened it in a few weeks, I think. But now they updated the content, and then yeah, the content will automatically be loaded. The reports and models will be refreshed, and then you will have the new content available. So what does it show? In this case, we have the usage and adoption of reports. So number of users, number of reports, and users that check the reports. The purview up also has some insights into sensitivity labels and the use of that, and endorsements for report, for example, so if they are promoted or certified. And some things on the roadmap, for example. I believe the content sharing insights we already saw in the workspace, so that's already available. The downside is the data in this workspace only goes back 28 or 30, let's say 1 month back into history. So you have 30 days of data. They are talking about increasing the retention, but they're already talking about it quite some time. So, and they haven't increased anything. So it's still available for 30 days. And in the end, they also want to have the capacity metrics app inside the admin monitoring workspace. So everything will be in that one workspace. Well, the good thing is, of course, it's available out of the box, so you don't have to do anything for it. And you can also use this workspace and the semantic model to extend it with some other things to your needs. So that's actually what I did to manage the licenses, so the pro licenses, and the cost associated with that. As I mentioned, some 8 years ago, I started at Van Lanschot Kempen, and they had quite some pro licenses. And when they switched to that premium capacity, they want to get rid of most of the pro licenses, right? Because that's well, the money was the first enabler. But they didn't want to disable all the pro licenses. They only wanted to disable the pro licenses of the people that didn't use it. So that's why I used the default semantic model of the admin monitoring workspace and extended that to check for unlicensed or unused licenses, I have to say. So the view that we see here is the default semantic model of the admin monitoring workspace. That's some user data, workspaces, some capacity, and also some audits. So if we then check at my custom semantic model, there were three things that I added. The first thing is, as I call it, the activity map. It actually has a categorization of the operations. So it can either be authoring, so needing a pro license, or consumption, just viewing reports, for example. Editing data sets or publishing a data set, that's all authoring. And in that way I can check if a pro license is needed or not. So I can actually check if a user that has a pro license uses any of the activities or not. Right now this is a manual list of operations, so it's not documented anywhere, but at least it gives me some insights and a start to get this analysis going. The second is I added some department data. I actually got that from the Office or the Active Directory, I have to say, and incorporated that into the report. And the last one is the licenses. And this one I got from the Office 365 admin center. You can export all the users with the appropriate licenses, and that way see if they have a pro license or not assigned to the user. Yeah, let's first go to the demo. So I want to show you how I extended that model. So let's go here. Let's put it to full screen for a second. So this is the report that I've created on top of the that custom semantic model. First one is activity analysis, and this is the activity map that I mentioned earlier. So authoring means all the activities that use a pro license. Will take a few seconds to filter. So for example, refresh data set, request the data flow refresh, create a report. Those things all need a pro license. At least that was my opinion. And for consumption, this is everything that can be done without the pro license. And I might have missed a few activities. I might have to update it because maybe new activities get added. And what I do is I filter the activities that are authoring, so everything else gets into the consumption bucket. So I might have to update it once in a while to get it up to date again. But what we see here is well, the total number of activities. We also see there's 9 capacities here, and the number of the type of capacities actually. If we zoom into those capacities, you will actually see that it's well the old premium capacities, right? So P1 and P2, and there's also a trial, so an FT1. There's quite some workspaces here. The pro workspaces actually are all the personal workspaces. That's why they also have the majority of them empty. So these are all empty personal workspaces. It's they get created for every user that once logs into Power BI. So that's not a real problem. But on the P1, I might actually want to check for those empty workspaces or inactive workspaces. Actually, nice that it's -1, but might be a miscalculation. If we look at this list, so the last active date of a workspace, let's check. Let's try this one. So I can actually drill through to the workspaces on this date. It's actually a good one. Yeah. So if we clear this filter, we actually see there's 3 personal workspaces. So that's not really a problem. They can be inactive for a long time, but the user can still be active. But if we check the regular workspace, and the names are anonymized, but you actually see that this workspace hasn't been used for almost a month. If you want to do some cleanup or things, then you can check that here. Looking at the departments, so I added those from Active Directory, right? We see some activities and users by departments. You can also again check for authoring or consumption if you want. So HR is pretty active on the activities the last month. And well, there's some data missing here for the consumption method, but other than that, you can still see the contribution by department. Then going to the last page is actually for me now the most important one, the licensing. The yellow part, so the left part actually shows the active users. So per day, active users and active workspaces. So this is the weekdays, right, and the weekends. A little bit less activity, not too strange. And the right part, the green part, is actually the inactive users. And for those inactive users, I actually want to check all the pro licenses. So in this case, it's not that much. It's only at least in the last 28 days, right? It's those 4 pro licenses, but you can imagine if it's tens or maybe hundreds of people that have a pro license and haven't used it in the last month, you can actually write to the people and check if they still need it, or they can be maybe discontinued, and just use the free license to further the analysis in Power BI and Fabric. So these were the out-of-the-box monitoring solutions, and this one I extended a little bit to create those insights. Let's have a short look at some other solutions that you can build your own or that are already available in the community. So I mentioned these earlier, the REST APIs. You can get tons of information out of the REST APIs. There are two sections actually. So the old Power BI REST APIs, but also some new Fabric APIs, which you can use to get actual items from Fabric or manage lakehouses or that sort of things. It also get a list of all the items, so all the Fabric items. And like I mentioned after the question for the capacity, there's a specific subsection of the Azure REST APIs that you can use to manage your Fabric capacity, because the Fabric capacity, so the FQs are now an Azure item, so they have to be managed through the Azure APIs also. So looking at all the REST APIs, you can get tons of information out of it. The most important one I will mention on the next page, but what I shortly also want to mention, a few months ago they also announced the CLI, so the Fabric command line interface, with which you can, for example, use notebooks to also talk to your Fabric environment. So instead of REST APIs, you can also use the command line interface and do it like that. So this is a list of all the examples that they have. So managing capacities or domains or gateways, for example, you can all do that through the Fabric CLI also. So if that's the use case you want to explore, just have a look over at the documentation. And one of the REST APIs I want to mention specifically, that's actually the get activity events API. I showed that in the demo also to get that that personal workspace operation. The most important part to know is that the data in the Power BI activity log is only available for 30 days. So if you want to report on it or get data older than 30 days, you should start now to get your data out of it. And there's actually a little bit automated ways to do that. You could call the API every day, for example, or do it starting now 30 days back. But there's actually a nice solution that was added recently. It uses the scanner APIs. That's a set of APIs to get all the inventory out of your tenant. You do need some access rights to do that. So that's also mentioned on the next pages. And the solution I'm talking about is FWAM. So Fabric Unified Admin Monitoring. It's actually a solution accelerator, as they call it, to do admin monitoring on your tenant. And it's actually created by a few people from Microsoft, but also community people. You can get it for free from GitHub. And well, it uses all the data that you see here. So capacity metrics, also activity logs that I mentioned. It's export your tenant settings. It all puts it into a lakehouse and has some default reports on top of it also. So it's really easy to get started. You do need some specific rights to run the solution. So either Fabric administrator rights or a service principal that has those administrator rights. So tenant read all, for example. And if you go over to the GitHub page of FWAM, it's actually really well written out, and you can easily get started on how to deploy the whole solution. It actually uses notebooks and pipelines to get all the data, then store it into a lakehouse and runs a few Power BI reports on top. You can schedule it, for example, daily or weekly, or just run it once to see what it does for you. It's a nice solution, to easily get started.
Perfect. So I think that's all the time we have, Nikki, if that's okay.
Yeah, no problem. I was just about to wrap up, so that's good.
Perfect.
Let's put this on the screen. Yeah.
Will we do 5 minutes of Q&A, as there's a lot, and then would they be able to private message you on LinkedIn if they have any questions?
Yeah, of course, that's always possible. Yeah.
Perfect. Yeah, so if anyone has any questions, just feel free to message Nikki. That's okay. Yeah, we'll go through one or two if that's okay. So hi Nikki, I'm a user. Our admin accidental is a very new to Fabric. We've set up Fabric capacity F2 pay as you go. They have given me permissions to create workspaces, but Fabric capacity option is grayed out. Can see and create under pro license mode. I think it's a statement, maybe.
Yeah, pretty much. I was looking for the question, but yeah,
yeah.
If the capacity option is grayed out, so that's here, right? Admin portal and then capacity. You don't have the proper rights then. If you want to get those, they have to add you to the either contributor permissions here. In that way, you can add or remove workspaces to this specific capacity. If that's not enough, you need admin permissions. So that's where the administrator has to add you then if you want to have administrator rights over the capacity. And you need this to set up the capacity metrics app also. So either the admin sets up the app and gives the rights to you to check the app, or he gives you admin permissions and you set it up yourself. So either of these ways.
Perfect. Yeah, that's all the time we have for today, unfortunately. Yeah, so on behalf of the ESPC community, I'd like to say a big thank you to you again, Nikki, for taking time out to carry this webinar. Really appreciate it.
Yeah.
So that's the end of today's webinar. You can find this webinar and more at sharepointeurope.com/resource center. Thanks again for all of you joining us today, and hope you join us again soon. Take care.
Thank you. Take care.
Thanks.